Let's move to our next presentation, Location AI and Retail Ecosystem by Ankeet Bhat, Chief Strategy Officer, MapmyIndia. Ankit is a strong opponent on how technology can change the lives of better by increasing human productivity. He takes a deep interest in business that share the same. At MapmyIndia, he oversees creation and leads multiple initiatives around maps, IoT, analytics, SD maps, computer vision, AI, ML by defining what to build, who to sell, and how to execute on those plans with technical and business team. He has a keen interest and focus on unit economics on the sustainable business model. Ankit is also an active community member of his Alma Matters, BITS Pilani, where he has hands in helping advertising, building entrepreneurs and startups. On that note, Ankit, all to you to start off with your presentation.
Thank you for the introductions, and I hope you can see me and hear me well, and see my deck, the presentation sliders also. But firstly, I'd like to thank you for the introduction, and I think since the morning there've been a very interesting set of discussions, opinions, especially around how I think over the last, I would say, 2 years, and especially during this difficult times, all businesses are kind of forced to go online, and in a good way also. And my topic here will be mostly focused around location and maps. As you know, location maps is a concept that we as consumers understand. We do use it to go from place to place. But in our businesses, there is a huge potential that can be unlocked. And we, being kind of the foremost company in the enterprise space, building location technology, maps, and solutions for multiple verticals, and even especially the retail ecosystem. Also, I thought it'd be a good thing to probably go through all the use cases that we're seeing, and how businesses are kind of reinventing themselves with the location first, maps first approach. And it's a very interesting, intriguing concept, and very subtle and embedded, sometimes very not so subtle, very explicit also. Like if you book a taxi or order food delivery, it's very explicit. But there are very subtle ways in which location is used in many brands and many services, and I think even in internal processes and business planning. So most of my talk will be focused on that, and yeah, I'll begin then. So I want to basically start off by setting the context that how this huge shift to online shopping has basically just changed all of India in the last many years. I would say 10 to 15 years. And even from a worldwide perspective, we're supposed to be the second most ranked country in terms of the growth that's possible going forward. And there are industry reports that say that we would reach by 2025 a humongous amount of online commerce, and this whole ecosystem of retail would kind of transform and change, and we're already seeing it change completely. And also from a perspective of organized, unorganized, and e-commerce, we're seeing that grow. So not only organized forms growing, but also e-commerce growing, and that kind of getting into the pie of what is commerce as a whole. But what are the challenges, right? So many challenges in the untapped, deeper markets of India, which are huge in kind of numbers, smaller ticket sizes, but very large in distribution, and obviously growing very fast as a spending base, and that definitely changing demographics also as people move into urban centers or some smaller areas become urban centers. How is that affecting demography? Who are those people? What are their choices? And how different are their choices from just a generic audience that's present in larger cities? And obviously that whole plethora of data coming in through two major sources, as we're seeing. One is obviously the phone, because all of us have phones, and phones are getting smarter. Phones are getting more compute intensive and more powerful. So essentially a phone is able to send video, audio, so many more sensors, and that is just going to go up and up and up. right? That's just the amount of data that's coming in is just going to increase more and more as phones become more powerful. And second is through IoT devices. A lot of the devices around us, as you're seeing at home, maybe 5 to 10 years back, weren't as connected as they are today. A lot of you will have, that are tuning into this presentation, will have Alexa devices at home, will have some smart appliances. So you can already see the gradual shift, in that in that behavior, because of which there's so much more data generated about the utility of those connected and IoT devices. So those two major changes will also kind of affect what people are buying, because now brands know better, right? So these are kind of the new challenges. And one of the things we think the way forward would be a phygital nature of everyone's business. And what phygital essentially is amalgamation of what's digital and what's physical. And that's where the intersection of these two kind of would push our businesses forward, as we're seeing it. So a couple of questions to basically light up everyone here, and maybe afterwards also take questions from the audience, like which micro market segments. So hyperlocal micro market segments are more profitable, and basically how do you segment your customers or index them basis, what is the area of high affluence or potential affluence or growth, and potential growth, as you're seeing that area change. And also, how do you transform from, transform the entire experience to a hyperlocal first, right? So most consumers are, kind of constrained right now because of what's happening in the world, but most of the retail experience is kind of constrained to either doorstep or like very nearby a place. So it's becoming very, very hyperlocal. And also, as companies are becoming more digital, and you have more people that are delivering and that are going to customers at their doorsteps, how do you optimize all of that? How do you optimize who goes where? How do you understand how to put all those operations together? Because the complexity increases as you try to deliver to your customers faster and faster and faster, and that requires more predictability. So that leads us to my entire presentation, which is location AI in the retail ecosystem. And this is essentially one of the slides that I wanted to focus on, where we're seeing so many different use cases that are popping up, especially for the use of maps and location by enterprises to serve their consumers better. So I'll start off from the left side, which is essentially using a lot of AI and BI, which is not only understanding where GDP is changing, like where shops are coming up, where construction is happening, where new buildings and skyscrapers are popping up, and over what period of time. And basis that rate of change, you probably know that you need to be kind of around those areas, or at least in those areas. And that information is getting more and more readily available as satellite imagery and other mobile data sources are, anonymized ones are getting more and more easy to access and to use. So that's a very interesting thing. We've seen brands trying to measure where on satellite images, where things are changing and where they should be present in like smaller cities, because India is also a very large geography. So you want to kind of narrow down onto which cities, and inside those cities where to be present. Moving up on the consumer app experience, location plays a very important role. We had a panel before and I did speak about it, but to reiterate, essentially, as a consumer is using your app, there are so many ways in which you can personalize their experience, because if they're trying to type in an address or tell you, hey, I want my delivery at my home, you essentially know their location through the app, and you can reverse engineer what their exact address is, or give them kind of a prompt that, hey, is this your address, right? So that machine learning and artificial intelligence capability can help consumers better communicate their address. And like we mentioned in the previous panel, that if an address is captured well, that results in lesser returns, and that results in lesser loss of revenue. So it's very critical to get the right customer location and the address. So not only from that perspective, also from a personalization of offers and personalization of what they see on the app, basis where they are. So if we've seen a lot of retailers trying to do that, where if there's an app and you're popping up offers, or if you have tied up with some stores, you probably want to tell them, you want to give prompts basis where they're moving. And basis, if a consumer is near your store, you want to prompt them that, hey, if you enter now, I'll probably give you a large discount, or there are these offers running. So you increase the customer conversion and basically personalize things basis where they are. Also from a distribution, like analytics for distribution. So where should you be present? Which are the high affluent areas? Where are your competitors present? So these kind of analytics are becoming very, very commonplace. But what's happening is we're seeing accuracy of data, and the amount of data is really, really what's important now. Also from an acquisition perspective, where are the similar kind of customers that exist that where you can grow your business? Because once you know those areas, you can essentially target those customers in those areas also. We talked about like hyperlocal personalization, and location-based ads also play an important role from from that acquisition perspective. Even from a geo CRM or delivery agent tracking perspective, as there are customers that want a delivery to come to their
Sandeep, Sandeep, there's a lot of background noise. Can you mute yourself and other folks that you can see on them? Ankit, please go ahead.
Yeah. Basically, the geo enabling the deliveries, right? So we've seen experiences where brands that are trying to reach the doorstep are essentially prompting consumers about when a person is going to reach their doorstep. And that not just happens by an SMS, it actually happens by an SMS along with a tracking link, that where the person can actually see the location of a person, of the delivery person reaching your house, maybe an hour before or half an hour before, so that there is no anxiety about when the person's going to reach, and you exactly know it. So brands are actually doing this, whether it's over a communication medium like WhatsApp, or it's independently sending communication to their consumers that, hey, this is when the person's going to reach, and that really elevates the perception of the brand as they implement these technologies, especially as they go D2C. Yeah, so those are some of the interesting use cases we've seen all across, whether it is consumer first or whether it is even for internal planning. So I'll quickly run through this. We talked about analytics for distribution channels. So essentially, where where are your stockists, where are the outlets, where are your consumers, and how does all this come in together to better serve your consumers, right, and your growing base of consumers. Even from a pin code or locality or exact house, I would say building perspective also, house and building, we're able to essentially geo map or geotag customers and retailers and kind of see where the base of customers are, and draw heat maps to understand where the next base of consumers will be, and are you sufficiently present in the areas where most of your consumers are. From a logistics and distribution perspective, essentially understanding drive times, right? So drive time from a warehouse to a depot, and depot to a consumer, and where should you have the next warehouse, right? And where should you have the next depot? All of these questions are basically defined by what you call a drive time map. And that drive time map is the extent to which you want the maximum amount of time it should take. So for example, from a warehouse to a depot, if you think it should be not more than 24 hours, then there is basically, I would say a polygon within which you can essentially have a depot. Or from a depot to a house, if you think the delivery should be only within 30 minutes or lesser, then there is essentially a map or a polygon that would, you can successfully serve consumers there. So all of this technology at the back also runs a lot of the beat optimization and delivery optimization. Also, yeah, we just talked about beat optimization for sales executives also. From an acquisition perspective, essentially understanding that where most of your consumers are and what's around them, and where are the competitors, and how can you kind of run location-based ads, or basically understand where do you need to market to consumers. So that is also very important trend that we've seen, and we've implemented successful use cases that way also. I'll quickly kind of run through these slides. So yeah, also from what is nearby your customers, right? So essentially, you can easily be able to see that, okay, there is there is a specific location, and around that location, what are the nearby, like I would say, shops, malls, markets, and all of that data can definitely help you in deciding where you need to be present, because there would be more retail or purchasing activity happening in a specific area. And from a personalized offers on your app or your digital interface, it's very easy to kind of know that if a consumer is in a particular place and you are associated with a particular set of brands, or you have offline presence there, how do you make sure that you're sending offers or sending prompts or notifications to your customers basis where they are? So that technology and that personalization is becoming more and more prevalent as as people are using their phones and most brands are going D2C. Yeah, we talked about hyperlocal advertising. So even from the advertising campaigns that are run, we're seeing a lot of brands coming to us and saying, hey, we need real data to see that have we run these ads in the right areas? Do we have billboards in the right areas? And where should we specifically focus in like the set of 100 cities, basis previous campaign knowledge and basis what we're doing at. So even in advertising, as brands are going out there, they want to know very specifically in where to run specific campaigns, whether it's digital or even if it's something offline like a billboard. Yep. So basically understanding demographics around an area. So if this was a billboard, then you'd essentially know what is around that area and what's the floating population, whether it is cars. So what's the car density on a road and at any point of time, and through the span of, let's say, a 60 or 90 day billboard purchase, what are, how many cars are kind of moving through. So how many eyeballs are you going to get? And also from a mobile, anonymized mobile movement perspective, how many people are actually going to pass through this area. And another trend that we're seeing is as there is more anonymized, location data that's coming through phones and through like IoT devices, there is a interesting inference that you can make essentially of what are the preferences of consumers in different hyperlocal, locations. So in certain locations, consumers prefer to go to, let's say, a specific Kirana store that's around, or in certain locations, consumers prefer to go to a organized retail store that is, very in that locality, or in certain locations, this is the most famous brand that people visit. And you can also measure that whether the inherent population that visits or it's a float population because the store is on a very high density or high traffic movement road. So all of this is becoming very, very ubiquitous, and we're seeing that information being used more and more. Even from a delivery perspective, like how do you essentially know where the deliveries are happening? If if there are, even if there are 3PL players, you can basically work with them to make sure that your payouts to them are more specific basis a specific metric, like how many how much travel happened and stuff like that. And yeah, we talked about like app experiences. We've enabled a ton of apps, some of the largest and largest, I would say, consumer apps also, where a type as you go location experience, or as you see on the right, delivery tracking experience is just becoming very, very normal. So these were interesting app experiences that we're seeing. But also, other than that, just generally making the app location aware is giving you more information about your consumers. Yeah, and which I mentioned earlier, through satellite images, what is changing, and what is the rate of new changes that are happening in regions, and where do you focus on, from a wide range of areas that are possible and available, right? So even from a like a hyper local perspective, which which kind of locations are seeing more footfalls, like as you're getting all this consumer mobile data is more and more available, where are there more footfalls in in a locality, right? And essentially, if there are more footfalls regularly in a particular locality, why is that happening? And there might be obviously a large market present there or something of that sort, right? So yeah, so that's kind of it in the presentation. I'll just close by sharing that we at MapmyIndia are powering the COVID portal too. So we've had a lot of innovation happening over the last couple of years. As you've seen, all the intelligence that we're bringing to the entire industry and even to the retail ecosystem, but also kind of something on the public domain where if you go to the COVID portal, we power the nearby vaccination shots there. We work with a host of companies, whether it is in the banking sector, whether it's in FMCG, consumer durables, and retail, and also in the government. And yeah, I would love to have a chat with anyone who has questions and thoughts, but would love to open it up for any questions, or offline. Would love to chat with anyone who has thoughts or any questions around this. Thanks.
Thank you, Ankeet. Presentation. Quick one or two questions. So people, if you have questions, please you can put it in the chat box, or simply you can unmute yourself and ask the question. Do we have any questions for Ankeet? Okay.
One question. Sorry. One question.
Go ahead.
So Ankeet, do you have any or are you guys working on any solutions for indoor locationing?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. Yes, we are. I think so. There are many things in indoor location, right? It's actually it's very different from outdoor location, because outdoor location has GPS, which is which easily gets our location to a decent amount of accuracy. In indoor, essentially, one of the main things to solve for is the positioning and the location enablement. So that is something that we do solve for right now. It's just, I would say, more bespoke in a way that if there is a large retail chain that we work with, then they're essentially their entire base of malls or stores are enabled with positioning technology. And as you're moving inside, they're able to kind of know that, okay, consumers are here, and we should probably send offers here, or there are different brands in different parts of the mall. So that is something that, yes, we do. And there are multiple things around it. One is obviously enabling the location, and then kind of having prompts and analytics around it. And second is just helping consumers on knowing what the indoor place is like and just navigating like in the real world, like we do in the outdoor world. So yes, we are working in the indoor ecosystem a lot too, whether it is airports, malls, and stuff like that. So I hope that helps answer your question.
No, can you reveal anything about the technology used, and second about the cost?
Yeah, so I can talk about the technology. We're in a forum where I guess we can talk. I have our teams talk to you about the cost, but from the technology perspective, essentially there are multiple technologies that we already work on. One is Bluetooth beacons. So essentially, you're able to have infra laid out, and through Bluetooth you can communicate with a phone that a consumer is carrying. That's one. Second is just the ambient Wi-Fi signals and other signals that are there. So, but that doesn't result in as coarse a signal or a location. So it all depends on the use case. So if you need very accurate, location, then the source of technology will be different. And if the location requirements are a bit coarse, then Wi-Fi and other ambient signals are fine. So that's essentially the base layer of technology that we work with right now.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Aniket, for your time and presentation. People, if you have any question, please put it in chat box or drop us a mail. We'll ensure that we introduce you to Aniket and his team. Thank you, Aniket.
Thanks a lot. Thanks.